Welcome to the 26th week after Pentecost. It is Tuesday, November the 19th, 2024. This is the Manna at the Tap podcast where we actively seek the spiritual nourishment our souls crave. The daily lectionary reading we explore together is the Manna, designed to nurture our spiritual growth and provide the sustenance our souls need. I'm Gloria, your fellow traveler on this spiritual journey, and together we share insights and interpretations from these readings that enrich our spiritual lives. The lectionary text for today is from the book of Deuteronomy in the Old Testament. It recounts the Israelites' journey from slavery in Egypt to their nomadic journey in the wilderness for 40 years. They are now at the end of their journey and they're on the cusp of entering the home God had promised to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and their descendants. The lectionary reading is Deuteronomy 26, verses 5 to 10. It is the instructions on presenting an offering to the Lord at the beginning and conclusion of the harvest. The offering will support those who do not have land and cannot be self sufficient. Now, these people included widows, orphans, foreigners, and a particular tribe, the priestly tribe of Levi, because they had no independent means of support because they were not given an allotment of land. The lectionary text details the liturgy the individual landowner was to perform before the altar. Now, this was different from his tithe. That was paid every 3 years. So, this is a free offering, and even though it's a free offering, it had to be sufficient for those residing with him so they could rejoice in all the good things the Lord had given. So, let's take a closer look at this liturgy, verses 5 to 10. It's a confession of Israel's faith and an acknowledgement that they had received the inheritance God had promised their ancestors. In verse 5, the liturgy begins with a landless ancestor. This landless ancestor is Jacob. After his brother Esau wanted to kill him for receiving the family's blessing from their father Isaac, Jacob journeyed to his mother's ancestral home based on his parents' instructions to him. There he was abused by his mother's brother Laban, and after 20 years, Jacob escaped with his wives and children and some flock and journeyed back home. Then a grain famine caused Jacob to go to Egypt at the invitation of his son Joseph. Jacob took his few family members and he became an immigrant in Egypt. There he prospered and they became a great nation. However, their success led to their oppression by a Pharaoh who did not know what Joseph had done for Egypt. Before long, the children of Israel became enslaved people in Egypt. They cried out to God. He heard their cry and saw their misery. God paid attention to their situation. He felt compassion for them and he lifted them from their misery. I'll say that again. I hope you're listening to these verbs. They cried out to God. He heard their cry. He saw their misery. He paid attention to their situation. He felt compassion for them and he lifted them from their misery. They left Egypt with a salary for 400 years of slavery, but they were still landless. The people journeyed in the wilderness for 40 years until a new generation was born and the old generation died. Now they're ready to receive the gift of the land, a home for homeless immigrants, a place of their own given to them by God, who is faithful to deliver what he has promised. Still, it depended on the people responding to this gift with obedience. Now, the community had witnessed God's faithfulness to them. They saw their ancestor Jacob began as a landless wanderer, and now his descendants have received a land flowing with milk and honey. They are to present the first fruit of the gifted land to God. And they were never to forget that at one time they too were enslaved people in Egypt. Our faith story defines us both individually and as a community. Remembering and recounting our faith stories is the fabric that shapes the spiritual identity of God's people as we journey through life. When we forget to remember and to recount our faith stories, our religion, our religious self shrinks and is replaced by an ungrateful and thankless self.